Hi, it's Daiki. I'm a Japanese living in Finland. In this video, I'm going to talk about 3 big differences between Finnish and Japanese society. A couple months ago, I made a video about 5 similarities between Finnish and Japanese. I got many interesting comments, questions and opinions there, so I decided to make another video with a bit similar topic. Of course, there are many differences, definitely much more than 3. But this time I only chose 3 big differences based on my personal experience. Please note that I'm not representing every Japanese nor foreigner living in Finland, so you might have different opinions. So the first one is the etiquette of paying. In this context, what I mean by etiquette of paying is, are men or older people expected to pay on a date or other occasions? This was actually one of the biggest culture shocks I got after moving to Finland. Let's take 2 cases as examples. If you are man and go on a date with woman, are you expected to pay? Or if you go for a drink or eating with somebody younger than you, are you expected to pay? I think the answer would be different in Japanese and Finnish society. In Japan, the answer would be probably yes in many cases. Of course, you don't have to pay just because you are man or older, but still many people expect that, and also many men and older people try to pay. I think many Japanese people, including myself, especially take it for granted that older people or someone of higher rank should pay fully or at least more than others. When I was working in Japan, we often had a drinking party or just went for a drink after work with colleagues. In most cases, people of higher ranks or older ones pay more, or sometimes they treated us, and that's how things worked there. However, when it comes to the topic of whether men should pay on a date or not, it has been more controversial nowadays, even in Japan. I think people in older generations tend to support the idea, but it seems like it's been changing little by little among younger generations as the society gradually embraced the idea of gender equality. However, it is still the fact that many men try to pay fully or more, and many people expect that. On the other hand, in Finland, I think the answers for the question should men or older ones pay would be generally no. After moving to Finland, I went for a cafe with a friend of mine who was a Finnish girl in the same school. It was a normal hangout and not even a date, but I tried to pay her coffee because I'm a man and older than her. Then she rejected the offer and asked me why I'm trying to pay. I didn't have the clear answer for that. Her point was that both of us are students and I'm independent, she's independent as well. So why don't we pay separately? I found it interesting and realized that that's how it works in Finland. I have to highlight that Finns treat others on a special occasions or if there are reasons for it, but being a man or older than others itself wouldn't be a reason to do that. I usually try to follow the local ways depending on where I am. Do you know one tricky thing? When I meet Finnish people in Japan or when I meet Japanese people in Finland, I don't really know which way I should follow. Anyway, this is one big difference between the 2 cultures. Let's move on to the second point. I know many international people who live or who have lived in Japan. And one thing which many of them don't like about living in Japan is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy here means complicated social systems and process such as much paperwork or inefficient, complicated public services. Those complaints include, for example, they had to provide the same information in various different formats by writing whole things by hand for different divisions, sections of public sector organizations. In many aspects of Japanese society, especially the public sector, the transition from analog to digital has not sufficiently progressed yet. Another example is if you get married and your family name changed, or if you move in a new place and your address changes. You need to separate change the personal information to different organizations, which can be too much work. And of course, in many cases, you need to go submit the paper during the business hours, which is not convenient. On the other hand, in Finland, those systems and processes are much more simple and streamlined. I would say digital technology is more utilized in many aspects of the society here. Of course, it's not perfect and they are working on to develop more so that things can be done in even easier and more efficient ways. But this is one thing I like about living in Finland. For instance, I have done moving 7 times during my 5-year life in Finland. Every time when I move in a new apartment, I just go to the website of Finnish Postal Service and change my address there. Then it will automatically update my address in other databases as well, such as tax, municipality, social insurance, and so on. Also, another good thing is I don't need to use paper in most of the processes since we can do them online. I have heard some of my European friends complaining how complicated the social systems and processes in Finnish society is compared to their own countries. However, to me, Finland isn't bureaucratic, and that's one of the elements which makes me feel that life here is easy. Last but not least, the third point is hierarchy. As many of you can probably imagine, if I compare the organizational structure and the style of human relations, Japan has more pyramid styles, while Finland has flat ones. Before moving to Finland, I was working for a traditional Japanese company where there was a strong hierarchy. On a daily basis as a salesperson, I was able to think, plan, decide and implement by myself, but many decisions still had to go through permissions of several different superiors. For instance, when I told the company my decision to quit the job there in order to study in Finland, it took nearly 5 weeks just to get the resigning approval from bosses or superiors in the companies, because my boss had to tell his boss and he had to tell and explain it to his boss and then to the director of the division, and so on. There were also other interesting examples of how this hierarchy affects daily business scenes. When writing an email to different stakeholders, it takes time to write their names in the beginning of the email in the proper way and the order, such as Director of Division A, Mr. blah blah blah, or Manager of Division B, Miss blah blah blah, and then in the proper way and order. Also, there are some rules to follow based on the hierarchy structure in other occasions, such as when taking a taxi or when sitting in a restaurant with someone with higher ranks. On the other hand, in Finnish companies, there are of course different job levels and positions with different responsibility, but generally they have a flat organizational structure. I think it's more common to have casual, informal work relationships. You can talk to pretty much everybody regardless of their positions in the company, and most people are on a first name basis, so it's flat, or I would say it's easy or simple in many ways. Let me share one story. After I finished my master's degree in Finland, I started working for a company here. When I was having a lunch with my colleagues on the second day there, one gentleman joined our table in a cafeteria and he took a seat next to me. He asked me like where I'm from, what I do, and when I started working there. And after I answered all the questions, I asked him one question. So what do you do here? And then he said, I'm a CFO. And I was like, what? That was a mind-blowing moment to me, who had previously worked only for a traditional Japanese company where I didn't even know the face of the CFO. he continued like there might be strong hierarchy in big traditional Finnish companies, but in general our society is not hierarchical. I can actually this sort of flatness in other parts of Finnish society as well, such as school, hobby groups, friendships, and even in Twitter. It's relatively easy to talk to anyone regardless of whether they are famous people or they have a high social status. For example, famous people in Finland like politicians or athletes talk casually with other random people in Twitter, and it seems that Finns take it for granted. So those are the three big differences between Finnish and Japanese society. As I said in the beginning, there are of course many other differences, and I can think of, for example, gift culture, how marriage and divorce work, adult education, school systems, and so on. But I'm not familiar with those topics yet, so better not talk about it here now. So that was it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, questions, or requests about video contents, please write in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Moi moi!